Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Soshing with Suntwe yet again. We're just having a few technical difficulties with the feed on the Zimbabwe side, so as soon as Kristi-Lee gets her side sorted out, we will get going again. I'm just going to take this opportunity to start sharing the feed, and if you would also do the same, drop us a comment, let us know where you're coming from. Here she is. She's about to come online with us now. There we go, Kristi-Lee. So yeah, just drop a comment, let us know, and say hi, and we're gonna just share the thing quickly. So just bear with us for a second. So I'm just gonna go in here. I'm getting lots of messages from people. Are you on yet? And just because we we're a bit late. But yes, we're on, and it is happening now.
I was expecting technical difficulties. Let me go and share as well.
Yeah, so share now. And share to the group.
Right, let me also share. Okay.
Cool. So just to bring you up to speed, today Kristi-Lee and I are going to be talking about The Telling Room, which is, this is not a great way to look at it. The Telling Room, which is a movie that her and her fiance have been working on for the past 2 years or so. How long? And also...
yeah, around about two and a half years.
Yeah, and also we're going to discuss her nom de plume as the Inscrutable Shrew. Some of you, I'm sure a lot of you will have read her writing before. It's very amusing, a very funny and very insightful look into daily life in Zimbabwe. I've really enjoyed reading her work, and I think a lot of people have had the pleasure. So if you haven't, go to the Inscrutable Shrew Facebook page, and I'm sure you can find some of the stuff there. So, Kristi-Lee, do you want to start telling us about you and what it is you do?
Yeah, sure. So, obviously, I'm a filmmaker, and Duncan is my partner, my life partner, and we started making The Telling Room, as I said, just over a couple of years ago. And so that's what we have primarily been doing for the last 2 years. And then I obviously write on the side, and I have the Inscrutable Shrew is my blog. So yeah, the Telling Room has been a really amazing project to work on. It's our first film, and obviously there isn't a huge film industry here in Zim, and so we were kind of threw ourselves in the deep end and have just been figuring it out as we go along, just winging it basically. And it's an urban fantasy about a young guy who he investigates some murders in his hometown. He has extraordinary abilities, and it's got monsters, it's got magic. So it's kind of like a fun, adventurous type of film, and kind of ambitious in terms of the VFX and the special effects, which is why our post-production has taken so long. So it's been really fun to work on, and something really different to do in Zim. Not a huge amount of other filmmakers here, but yeah, it's been really cool.
So tell me, what size sort of cast did you have for the film? How many actors? What is the sort of size of your production team, post-production team? Give us an idea of the scale of what you were working with.
So our main cast, the main people were probably about, I'd say, 6 people. All of our cast is Zimbabwean, and yeah, so we had a main cast of 6, but it was actually there were so many characters in the film, like supporting characters, that I think in the end, with sort of secondary roles, it was probably something like, I don't know, 20, 25 people. And so that was really cool to work with such a big cast. And we had a huge amount of locations as well. Usually when you start making a film as an indie filmmaker, your first film, you're not really supposed to do, massive amount of locations. You're kind of meant to keep it to sort of 3 or 4. But because it's a fantasy and it's an adventure and stuff, we had a lot of locations, and then there were sort of a lot of people, and we had a lot of extras. I think on one day we had about 150 extras that we were kind of managing at Nesbitt Castle, so that was pretty interesting and fun. And that was in Bulawayo. People came out, they got dressed up in sort of old-fashioned clothing because it's set in like the sort of 60s, 70s. And so, yeah, I mean, our crew, one of the challenges of making this film here in Zim has been that there isn't a huge, especially in the film industry and the arts industry, a huge selection of professionals who've been trained, in film school to do lighting and focus pulling and things like that. And so we kind of we were in the deep end. We did a lot of the work ourselves, and then we had a small crew of young guys that we kind of trained, on the job to do, focus pulling and lighting the scene and stuff like that. And that was difficult having such a small crew. I think there was only about 6 of us as well. And we kind of had to wear a lot of hats, running around, designing sets, doing the catering, feeding people, making sure that there were no continuity errors, lighting the scene, shooting the scene. And so it was definitely a huge team effort from a small group of people. But it was really fun to do. And I think when you have a really big challenge and a big thing that you're trying to do, and you have a small group, you get really close. It's interesting to see what you can accomplish, without such a massive team.
True. So what was your particular role in it? Were you writer, director? What was what would you say what was your main hat that you wore? I'm sure you wore many. Like you said, it's a small team, you would have had to wear a lot of hats and a lot of different things. But what was your main role?
So I probably be labeled as a producer. Duncan wrote the script. So interestingly, I'm the one who writes in my spare time, but he actually wrote the script for the telling room. And he directed it and shot it, and he has really done the most amount of work on this film of all of us who participated. He's done the editing, he's done all the VFX and all of that. But I was a producer, and it was my job to, and we did a lot of this together as well. But it was my job to sort of organize shoots and obtain all of the props, costumes, organize all the casting, and then when we're actually shooting, to just kind of manage the shoot and make sure that, it's a big moving vehicle when you're shooting, a big moving machine, because Duncan's got to be shooting and directing and dealing with actors, and I've got to be making sure that the props are all there and the set is designed and everything is, there's no continuity errors and stuff like that. And so I'd be considered as a producer, which is very much like a glorified administrator and an organizer, but really fun because it's all sort of in the arts, costumes, design, and all of that sort of thing. So yeah.
Nice. Before we continue, I just want to give a shout out to those watching. You'll see me looking out to the side. I've got another screen here where I'm viewing the video as a spectator as well, so I can see who's actually watching all the rest of it. Thanks for coming, Rashane, Sham. Hi, Sham. Nice to see you. You're always so supportive. Thank you. Christine, Tuki might even be a guest at some stage, so that's cool. Thanks for coming, Tuki. Craig Black is there. Meredith Fisher from Victoria Falls. She's got a great B&B there. Anish Lala, A.K.A. Andy. Thanks for coming, bro. Yo, my ninja. Back at you, dude. Clara, hope you're well. Kirsty, she's my birthday twin. Hussein, Carly, Joe, Mark, Darren Winterball. Nice to see you, mate. Hope things are well there in Zim and you're still racing and winning all the races. Eleni, hi. There's Michelle Calder. That's great. So thanks for coming. And at any stage, guys, if you have any questions that you want to throw in, chuck them in the comments. I'll bring them up on the screen. We can chat about it. We can do see, Michelle Calder says, can't wait. Let's see here. Can't wait to see the telling room. I played a small part in the beginning of the movie. Oh, that's cool.
Yes, Mark.
And then Tammy's there now. So if you got anything to say, check your comment in. I'll bring it up like I just did with Michelle's, and we can chat and ask questions and get involved in the conversation. So we're not just talking at you, but everyone's getting involved. If you are enjoying, tag your mates to come and join in, share the video, whatever works for you. Let's all get involved and have a good time. So Kristi-Lee, when are we looking at potentially seeing the movie? Is that a big pressure question?
So at the moment, we're kind of in the last stages of post-production, and as I said, we were kind of ambitious in the CGI and visual effects, which is also not a thing you're supposed to do when you're making your first indie film. But we always kind of don't do things the way we should. So we're kind of in the last stages of doing that, and it's hard to say. We kind of, every time we put a date on it and we think, okay, we're going to be done by the end of the month type of thing, something happens and delays us, and it takes a little bit longer, and that's kind of the nature of visual effects and CGI, because especially when you've got a very small team doing it, if there's a software challenge, then it delays you by 2 or 3 days while you try to figure that out. Rendering times, CGI takes ages to render. So we're kind of right at the end, and I'm excited because it will be done in the next few months. But because we've engaged agents and various sort of people overseas who are interested in the film, we're going to be sort of, when it's done, they'll be watching it and kind of going from there on, potentially who's going to be showing it or who's going to be releasing it on our behalf, who we might sell it to. And we don't know what that looks like yet. So I can't really put a date on it. But I suppose once we've kind of figured out with our agents and stuff where this film is going, one of our plans is to have a release here in Zim, and also when this COVID-19 thing is over, so that we can actually have it in a cinema. So that everybody who was kind of a part of it can come and see it and see what we've done, after all this time.
So just again to stop there, we've got a special comment come through from Daniel Lasker, who is actually the lead role in the movie. So Daniel said, "Hard work and patience always pays off." Dan, you don't really know me, but I've known your mom my entire life. And I just want to say, super proud of you, bro. I've seen a few things that you've done. I really, really was impressed and touched and moved by your own version of the Joker's monologue that I saw on YouTube a few years ago. That I was like blown away by that. A lot of people don't know I really am quite a theater type person. I like the cultural side. I used to be a dancer. So it's a big interest of mine as well. And big up to you, mate. Well done. And I can't wait to watch the movie and see you in it. And that'll be great. Clara says, Zim Entertainment making its mark. Woohoo! Can't wait to watch it. Clara lives in Vic Falls. She's so putting the telling room aside for a bit. One of the things that made me that drew me towards you in the beginning was the Inscrutable Shrew. Your writing as the Inscrutable Shrew, which I came across on social media and found very amusing. Could you tell me how that started and how the name came about, how it started, what got you to tell me about the birth of the Inscrutable Shrew?
So I started the Inscrutable Shrew, I think it was in August 2018. And it was kind of in the middle of, or straight after the coup, and I think we'd had our last set of elections, if I remember correctly. I don't know if I've got the dates right there, but as I've been known to say, Zimbabwe kind of has this 10-year cycle, and so we were kind of heading into our decennial descent into chaos. And I've lived here for 7 years now, and I was here in 2008, but I took a break and then came back, and to kind of cope with the deterioration of how life had been in 2012, 13, 14, 15, I I wanted to lift people's spirits, and I was talking a lot on Zimvine. And anybody who's not from Zim who's watching this, Zimvine is kind of your number one resource on Facebook if you're going to survive in Zimbabwe and if you're going to get survival here creamed. And, it's where we get all our information. Where can I get this? Where can I buy that? And so I'd started asking my questions in a sort of playful and comedic kind of way. And people kept on saying, oh, you should write a blog and stuff like that. And I'd never really considered myself a comedian before, but trying to find the funny, humorous side of daily problems that I was trying to solve, stupid things that, like my car breaking down and trying to find fuel for the generator and things like that. It was like a catharsis basically, and to interact with people who were also facing those issues and wanting to laugh about it. And so I started the blog because people wanted to hear more, I guess, about life in Zim and just the funny side of dealing with the challenges of living here. And so it's been a huge amount of fun to channel my frustration and my anger at the injustices of having to deal with these what I consider inane problems that are hindering people from achieving great things. Not necessarily hindering, but you shouldn't have to be trying to get the lights on and trying to get the water running every single day when you could be trying to become something great. And so that frustration I've kind of channeled into the blog, and hope that it's a form of and not to sound over the top, but a form of processing trauma in a way for people whose their lifestyles had to change so much now with the power cuts and blah blah blah, and they've been able to at least hopefully find some humor in it and be a little bit inspired and take it in a bit more of a lighthearted manner.
Mm-hmm. So for those who don't know, like, I've never met Kristi-Lee in person, but we connected just over a year ago through, not really it was a random thing. She messaged me wanting to know about something that I had written about, a hiking thing somewhere on social media. And then we got a bit chatting, and then there was like when I did that weight loss transformation last year, I started a group called Raw Movement where people can support each other through their own physical journeys and fitness journeys and all that. And she joined that, and we've had a chat here and there. And over the last year and a half, we've had quite a few deep and meaningful conversations through text and phone call here and there, and we resonate quite well with each other. So that's how we got to this point now where we're chatting. To acknowledge some comments, Amy Grieve has said, damn, that South African accent. Well, first, Amy, we're not South African. We are Zimbabwean.
We are definitely
That is the equivalent of telling a Canadian that they're American. They're not American, they're Canadian. So
yes.
So yeah, Zimbabwe, not South Africa. Andrew McConey for actually making it. He's been trying to watch the show for a couple of weeks now, and it keeps on getting sidetracked by something or another, and he's finally there. Yay! Good to have you. There's another one, another comment. There it is. Anne Williams, you need to turn it into a book. It would be awesome. I'm guessing that's the Telling Room. I think there's a future collaboration that's going to have to happen between you and I, Kristi-Lee, is that when I get around to actually writing more of these Chronicles of Suntwe, which I've been trying to write, I'm going to get you guys to make the movie out of it as well. But there's a clause. In fact, before I tell you, anyone in the comments, my movie, who should play me in my movie? Okay, let's see the stupid comments now. My clause is that if you make my movie, you have to get Tom Hardy to play me.
Yes. Oh, no, that would, yeah.
I have a giant man crush.
I actually can't see anyone else doing that.
I have a man crush on Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy.
Oh, I love him as well.
That dude is the shit. I like him. So if you make my movie, you have to.
I wasn't.
Baron Pretorius, love you, bro.
I have to.
Oh, Anne Williams says no, not the movie. The Shrew should be made into the book. Agreed. That would be good.
The Shrew. Oh, what did you say? Andrew McConey, a book, coffee table, hardcover. Okay.
Daniel Lasker.
Someone else is suggesting that Jeremy.
Sorry, carry on.
Someone's suggesting that Jeremy Renner plays you. I could see that as well, but I prefer Tom Hardy.
Yeah, Byron Pretorius reckons Brad Pitt. Daniel Lasker reckons Tom Hardy is the man. I'm with Daniel Lasker on that one. Brad Pitt is beautiful. We can't lie. But he's getting on a bit, and by the time my movie comes out, he'll probably be an old man.
Yeah. No, I think Tom Hardy's the man.
What is your goals with the Inscrutable Shrew? Do you have any bigger plans for it, or is it something just because it's a stress coping mechanism that you've utilized to gather your thoughts about day-to-day life, or is there a bigger goal? Is it something you're going to continue with in the long term, do you think? I know these are big, quite pressured questions, and there doesn't have to be an answer to them either. But I'm just curious to know what your ideas are, what your thoughts are on it.
So when I started it, it was definitely just a coping mechanism and catharsis. And I still, at the moment, I don't have like a strict posting schedule or like some type of strategy that I have to follow or whatever. I'm not desperately trying to get views or gain more readers or anything. It's literally there for people to, kind of enjoy, the writing for what it is. And to kind of relate to the experience. So I think for now, that's probably what it will continue to be. But I would like to make a book about my experiences in Africa. Obviously, I've grown up in Africa between Mozambique, Zimbabwe, South Africa. I've lived in Botswana, and I've kind of been all over the southern part of this continent. And there's so many stories that, when you're sort of traveling around and living like a bit of a nomad, that, fun stories, different people that you meet and different perspectives that you come across, and obviously a huge amount of challenges, long drives, breaking down on the road, corrupt policemen and stuff like that that are such a great opportunity for humor. And so I'd like to make a coffee table book like Andrew was suggesting, possibly one day, and get it illustrated, maybe in the same style as my little banner with a little, shrew picture and whatever. And then it's something that people who are in love with Africa and who've also experienced, those kind of funny, things that you do when you're traveling all around and interacting with different cultures, they can keep that as a kind of memento of the experiences that we have here when you are a traveling African.
Do you like writing?
Do I like writing? I love writing. I love writing, but I love writing on my own terms. So I don't like to write for other people or for money, for other sort of projects. It has to be something I really believe in if I'm going to write for an organization or something like that. And I've done a little bit of that. But I love writing if it's for me and if it's about, my experiences and just, it's an art that I don't want to sort of touch with forcing myself to do it for money or anything like that.
I'm a bit the same. I really like writing. I'm not very good at it yet because it's not something I've really focused on before the last year or so. But hopefully I'll get better. But I really like it. I prefer the process of having written than the actual process of writing. Sometimes the process can be a little bit daunting and a little bit frustrating, and I put a lot of pressure on myself to get things done, which is why I haven't written the 6th installment of the Chronicles of Suntwe since I started it in July. But it's coming out soon, I promise. It's halfway done, and every now and again I open it up and I write another line, and then I close it again and I leave it for a week. So it'll be out soon. And then I think once I get that sixth one out, it's a bit of that's creating kind of a block in the system. I'll get the rest out faster after that because there's so much that needs to come out. What are you doing with yourself currently? How's life in Zim? What's going on? What's your plan?
So as I said before, we're kind of finishing up post-production on the telling room, and I don't have a major role in the post-production. Duncan is the visual effects artist, and so he's kind of doing all of that. But there's bits and pieces that we have to do. We're doing a shoot soon of a scene that we've kind of added into the film right at the end. Once you edit everything together, you kind of notice if there's gaps or things you need to make clearer. So I'm kind of managing that, and yeah, we've been doing some work online, both of us as well. And like I mentioned before, writing for organizations. I'm kind of starting to work with an NGO, and it's very new. There's nothing much to tell about it yet. But yeah, just kind of looking for things to be a part of more internationally. And yeah, so I think over the next 2 months we're going to focus on finishing the film, and then after that, hopefully this whole COVID thing has kind of, I don't know, this, because we're working from home, it hasn't stopped us from working necessarily, but it's put the whole world on hold. And so even our agents overseas in America, their operations will come to a halt. And so, yeah, we're hoping that by the time we finish the telling room, this will all be over and we can kind of carry on, go ahead with marketing it and doing what we need to do with it. So yeah, I guess we're gonna kind of take a look at things once we finish and hopefully once things kind of normalize. So yeah.
Yeah, cool. So we've got another question from Andrew. He's saying, Kristi-Lee, would you publish your coffee table book as an autobiography or a chronicle of your life, love, and travels of Southern Africa?
I think probably a chronicle of life, love, and travels. And I think an autobiography, I'm 28, so I haven't lived that long really in the grand scheme of things. So I don't know if I would publish it as an autobiography, but certainly a chronicle of at least the stories that I've been part of and the stories I have to tell, and anything sort of super humorous and funny that I've experienced.
Guys, if you have any further questions on any of that stuff or any general questions or anything you'd like to discuss while we're here, drop it in the comments. Let us know. We can happily go on tangents. This is just a very, very easygoing, organic type conversation. Nothing here has been prepared. It's completely off the cuff. And your input is very valuable, and we encourage that wherever you want to give it. Also, I'm always looking, just to take this opportunity, I'm always looking for new guests. I do this once a week, every Wednesday, same time, 7 p.m. CAT and 6 p.m. BST. I've got a couple of guests lined up still, but if you know anyone that would be an interesting person to chat to, or if you're an interesting person to chat to, or if you have a specific topic that you think would be interesting to talk about, let me know. You can drop it in the comments, you can inbox me, whatever, and I will be happy to make inroads into that happening. What else was I going to say on that? I think that's good. Yeah. So, what else? I had a whole bunch of stuff in my head, and now I'm going a bit blank.
What have you been up to that side? How's the UK at the moment?
We've got another question, and then I'll get to yours. It's from Jennifer Norval. Kristi-Lee, are you going to carry on with your book?
Hi, Gogs. Jennifer Norval is my grandmother. So I'm assuming that she's meaning another book that I have started writing, probably not the coffee table book, because we've only just discussed that now. So in answer to your question, Gorgs, I'm still writing that book, but that's very different to the material in the Inscrutable Shrew. The Inscrutable Shrew is obviously a comedic sort of commentary on life and how, all that. And the book that I'm kind of working on now is more of a fantasy novel. So, and that'll take me a while to get through. So that's kind of a work in progress.
Oh, cool. So, yeah, I'm going to ask you another question. We'll get to me later. But seeing as you're a writer and I am an aspiring writer, shall we say, what tips have you got for me to get through that block? Or anyone else out there who's a writer or an aspiring writer, any tips to get through that block where you just seem to be stuck and not able to move through a specific piece? Like for me, this sixth installment, I know the story because it actually happened. It's just a case of actually the problem I'm having with it is, yeah, gee, how easy could it get, really? The problem that I have is that I have a major problem with perfectionism when I feel like the writing is not doing justice to the magnitude or the epicness of what the actual experience was. And so I keep on stopping because I feel like I'm not doing it justice. How do you think I can push through that?
So I totally relate to that. And for all of the people who are my readers who are watching this, this is a great explanation of why I sometimes take weeks and months to post a new post. So, because it's the same for me with Inscrutable Shrew, I'm writing about things that have happened. You know, how easy does it get when you just have to record something that's already taken place? And it's the exact same thing for me. I'm a perfectionist, so you know, and I want to do justice to the story, and I want to make people laugh, and you know, so I will sit and on one word, one adjective, you know, I want to explore every variant available to the English language of that particular word to make sure that I use the right one. And you know, so then you write one sentence in 2 days, you know. And so what I've learned for my writing is that I would kind of design what story I want to tell, or what, you know, sequence of events I want to tell in this particular post, and kind of outline it in just hard bullet points, and just say I'm going to talk about the Zesa problems, I'm going to talk about someone stealing the cable, I'm going to talk about raking in donations to replace the cables, and then I'm going to talk about, you know, how to stay positive in when things like this happen, you know, just for example. And then I try and write a paragraph on each point, no matter how imperfect it is. And instead of, you know, fussing over, you know, how am I going to open and what's the opening line going to be, and is it going to be interesting to people, I just vomit it out and just accept the word vomit. And I keep telling myself that I'm going to go over it and clean it up and use better words and correct my grammar and so on. And it does take pushing, though. It's not an easy process even for me. And so I kind of have to like force my way through it and then go back. And what's nice about that as well is that your piece kind of evolves, because you'll have your sort of little outline and your word vomit now on the page. And when it's down, you think, okay, this is not so bad. This is not as bad as I thought it was going to be. And then you go through, and because you've got the structure, you're just adding meat to the bones now, and that has made it easier for me. Whereas before, I would want to write every sentence perfectly from the get-go without having to backspace even once, which is ridiculous. And so then it would take me 3 hours to write one sentence. I mean, it's just ludicrous. So that's what I do. I don't know if, you know, people have different writing styles, so it might not work for you, but you could try it.
I agree with you on the most of it. I have a big problem though in the fact that, you see, you want to write it and go back. I want to write it and never go back, because firstly, I'm lazy, and secondly, I feel like if I go back, I will hate what I've written and want to scrap all of it as well. So I try and get it out and publish it so that I don't go back to it and then ruin it, and by being too scrutinizing too much. So but I'm getting to the point now where I'm realizing that something that is 60% as good as I want it done is better than something that's not done at all. So something written that's a bit shit is better than something not written.
Yeah.
So we've got a couple of questions again.
Yeah.
We've got, Daniel Lasker saying, what has been your favorite part of this entire telling room creation process, and what was your worst?
Wow, what was my favorite and what was my worst? let me see. I think my favorite part of it was, sorry, you can probably hear my dog whining in the background. He was supposed to be with Duncan, but he's not. I think my favorite part was we set out to do something that hadn't been done, not ever before in Zimbabwe, but certainly a fantasy film on this scale has not really been attempted in recent years, in 10, 20 years. And we set out to do that, and we knew nothing at the beginning, and we didn't know anybody here in the arts industry or the film industry. And as we went through it, we met people and put together a team, our cast and crew, and we got so close to those people and have made such good relationships and strong bonds with those people in doing this artistic project. And I've really enjoyed that. That I think has been my favorite part, is creating art with other people. There's something empowering about that, and something special about it, that we could do something inspiring, something that hasn't been done before together, and we couldn't have done it without each other. So I really like that. And I think my worst part of it, look, all of the Telling Room cast and crew who are currently watching this will agree that I had my days on set where I was an absolute dragon and breathed fire on everything that got into my path. And so you could argue that whatever was happening on that day was like, the worst thing. But I can't actually remember anymore why I was so angry with some of those things. We'd forgotten props and I had to drive 40 Ks to pick them up. I don't know. I can't remember. But I think overall, the post-production process has been the most difficult for me because I'm not a VFX artist, and Duncan has done all the editing and all the VFX work. And so this has been a pretty lonely journey for him. And I've obviously been here in the background supporting him, and obviously we go over the shots together and kind of crit the VFX shots and all of that, and kind of make those decisions together. But I'm not kind of hugely involved as he is. And so I've kind of been on the sidelines waiting until my sort of part can come back into play, where we start engaging our agents again and marketing and getting on Facebook and spreading the word and organizing shows and showings of it at Stoke Unicorn, whatever. So because I think that, coupled with the fact that 2020 has been a bit of a write-off, 2019 was super difficult for us in terms of the power. Things just got really bad here. Fuel, we didn't have solar, and so trying to keep Duncan's computer on so that he could work became this Mount Everest. There was just a nightmare every single day. I was constantly pouring fuel out of drums and buying 200-liter drums and having to run the generator 15 hours a day so that he could work and get things done. And that was, those sort of times, and I think I wrote a blog post about it, pouring fuel into a container and being doused in it straight after bathing, and spitting like a vicious cat. Those sort of times I thought to myself, is this worth it? Like, can we just throw this film in the bin so that we can be done with it? But all of that at the end of it all, you take the bath and you get the petrol smell off and go and have a cup of tea, and a few weeks later you think, it's okay. So yeah, I think some of those moments are my worst moments, but all in all, I do this again, and I think that's the telling thing, is that I do it again.
Well, it's a bit like any sort of endurance event, where during the endurance event, you're sitting there crying for your mom and going, "What the hell am I doing to myself?" And when you get to the end, you're like, "When's the next event?" I know the feeling. Yeah. I feel it's pain during the event. But once you reach the end and you have the growth and the accomplishment and the fulfillment of that growth, that you've gone through that experience, you just want it again and again and again. I want to just take this opportunity to actually formally invite Daniel Lasker. Would you like to be a guest for me at some stage soon on this little Soshing with Suntwe show? You can tell us about your experience, your acting career, where you've come from, how it's developed, etc., etc. So this is a formal invitation extended to you, Dan, if you wanna join us. Join me on another one. We've got Sandra Hudson just joined, is watching from Winchester in the UK. I saw a comment there agreeing that you were a bit of a at some stage as well. I'm sure there was. Oh, then we've got another question.
What was that? Say that again.
I said there was a comment that I brought up onto the screen when you said you were a bit of a dragon breathing fire. There was an agreement. There it is. Yes, she was. Then
too much chicken. That's what's going on here.
Another question from Andrew. I have another question for Kristi-Lee. I'm not a writer, but I have thought about writing a book about my life. I don't want it to be an autobiography, as I'm only 32 years old. How do I get started writing a book? How do I avoid Paul's writer's block? Now it's got a name, thanks. It's now Paul's writer's block. And when do you know it's time to stop writing?
Well, the first answer that comes to my mind is to your last question. When do you know when it's time to stop writing? So I don't know if some people will know who Taika Waititi is. If you don't know who he is, you need to look him up. He's a really cool director from New Zealand. And I was watching a video that he was doing the other day when he was talking about writing, when he sort of joins people to write scripts and whatever. And for all of the movies that he's made, his indie films. And he says, people ask him the same question. They're like, what's your writing process, and how do you know when you're not getting it right? Basically, like when to stop almost. And he says, I just sit down and write, and when I get bored, then I stop. When my story is boring me, then I stop and I change direction. And so, I think if you're going to write, as you say, you don't want to make it an autobiography, Andrew. But if you're going to write about your life, there's obviously certain experiences that you want to share. And so for me, all my experiences are going to be tailored kind of similar to the Inscrutable Shrew. They're going to be comedic experiences and inspiring experiences that I've had traveling in and around Africa, living in and around Africa, and really showing off giving an insight into African life and how we rise in adversity and that sort of sense of humor that Africans have that takes a real beating, but you can never beat it out of us. And so I guess you have to decide like what I don't want to say your message, because you don't necessarily need to be preaching something, but what your message is going to be, or what story are you trying to tell about your life? Maybe it's not your whole life story because you don't want an autobiography, but what story are you trying to tell? And then just the events that have happened in your life, or the experiences or thought processes that you've had that are sort of around that, start structuring those into some type of structure that that you want to put across to your readers, and then work on it bit by bit. It's not an easy thing to write a book, but when it's about your life and your life experiences, you've already have events that have already happened for you to draw on, so that's a bit easier. So I think it would be just about structuring it and then putting meat on bones once you've got a structure down that you're happy with. I don't know if that answers your question.
Do you know what I'm struggling with a lot as well, which is why I take time to get these stories out, is the fact that the stories I'm trying to make them as standalone as possible so that you can read them out of order and all the rest of it. Although the last three have to be in order for you to really appreciate them. But the thing that I really struggle with, especially because mine are pretty autobiographical because they are about the adventures that I've had, but to get a full understanding of the story that I'm telling, there are like 7 or 8 sub-stories that need to be understood at the same time. So, like, if I was to sit here and tell you the story of the one time I did such and such, I would start telling you and I'll say, but hold that thought. And then I'll tell you a whole background story that got to that point, and then carry on the story a little bit. And then let's say, hold that thought because there's a background story to tell you that got to that point, so that you understand where, because for instance, there's things about how I overcame fear on certain things because I'm a wuss. I'm a wussy kind of person in general. Like, that's who I am. So when people see me hanging from a helicopter or kayaking down a river or climbing a mountain or being stupid, doing something ridiculous that is considered to be brave, and that they don't realize that I'm shitting myself most of the time, and it's so there's background story to how that happens. But how do you know what to incorporate, what not to? How do you string that all together? That's the part that drives me mental.
Yeah, that is really difficult. So from a novel writing perspective, the novel that I'm writing now, which is still a work in progress and all of that. It's different to the Inscrutable Shrew in that it's not a commentary on daily life. It's something I'm making up. It's fiction, and I've had, in order to put the story across, I've had to sit and like do this whole structure, this whole plan from beginning to end, because like you say, it's similar in that you've overcome fear, and there's certain things that have happened in your past that are reasons that you've done that and that have helped you do that, and there's all these sort of points that you want to string together and kind of make them all connect so that people can understand the full scope of this, how you overcame it and why certain things are important. And so in fiction storytelling, that's kind of like setups and payoffs, where you bring attention to something in the beginning of a story, and then later you pay that off with, where things come full circle in that particular thing. And so when you're writing a story, the planning of it is quite important, because you can kind of, if you don't plan it, you can kind of get lost, and you haven't set certain things up so that people know, I'm actually quite an anxious person. And I realized that I needed to, learn how to overcome my fear. And then later, when you are sitting on a raft and doing all these crazy things, you've kind of come full circle. And there's a whole bunch of things in the middle of that have led to that. People can kind of get lost in that. But if you have kind of planned out the message, I keep using the word message, but I don't mean it as like a preachy sort of thing. But if you planned out the message that you are wanting to get across, and you've thought about before what things are important to that message, like that are going to sort of set up the steps or set up the beats that you're needing to hit in your story. Planning that out means that you can kind of keep it focused. So even though you're going to tell other stories and bring in bits of your other backgrounds and past events or experiences, they're all going to be relevant to the story that you're trying to tell. So I don't know, if when you're trying to do standalone autobiographical content, and you want them to be standalone so that people can just hop in and read anywhere, but they could also work as one, long sort of autobiographical account. Maybe try planning them in sections. Like say these five stories are going to be about how I overcame fear, and then you kind of have your thread of overcoming fear throughout all 5 of them. Each one is now dedicated to one section of that. So, like let's say your first section, of the 5 is how you realized that you were afraid, and that you admitted to yourself or whatever that you were afraid. I'm just giving examples. And then you pick like 1 or 2 events that kind of led to that, so how your thought process, how you came to the conclusion that, actually I'm a scared person. And so you'll have a beginning, a middle, and an end to that, and a setup and a payoff to that, your story, part 1 starts that, I was acting out and I didn't understand myself or whatever, and you get to the end of the story and what I had to admit was that I'm afraid, and guess what, I need to do something about it. And then you leave it at that, and then you move on to part 2, and your little stories that you tell in part 1 can have their beginning, middle, and end, but you kind of leave people with that idea that something else is coming to continue in this natural journey, that when someone realizes they have a problem like being afraid, they know that they need to go on a journey to overcome their fear. And then part 2 will now be the start. You've embarked now on figuring out how to overcome your fear and what steps you're going to take to do that. And then you do that for, part 2, part 3, part 4. And then, part 4, because it's the second last, would be kind of coming to the end and where people can see that in part 5, you're going to overcome. You're right at the sort of top of Everest. You haven't summited yet, but you're getting there. There's maybe one more lesson you need to learn, type of thing. And have your kind of success and your victory in part 5. So, I could go on and on about the structure of story, and Duncan is really, really good at this, and he has some good, he's written like a little sort of structured thing that you can use when you're writing stories, and I use that a lot in my writing. So I could definitely show you that, but in a nutshell, I'd split it up into little parts and have like just one main thread that kind of runs throughout to keep you on track, but still allow you to explore the different backgrounds that you want to explore.
Yeah, well, the common theme through the whole thing is basically overcoming fear and overcoming fear in the face that I am a fearful person. And the grandiose message of what I try to deliver in life is that there's no extraordinary people, just ordinary people doing extraordinary things and then pushing themselves out of comfort zones. I don't believe that there's any genetically superior or I'm sure there's predisposition to certain things, but the point is that everybody's the same flesh and blood at the end of the day, and the only reason some people do things and some people don't is because they just, some people push themselves out of their comfort zones and others don't. So that will be very helpful. I'm very, very glad. That was great. Thank you for that. Daniel Lasker has replied and said he's keen. So everybody, we'll be having Daniel Lasker as a guest soon. I'll liaise with him offline at another stage, and we will set that up. Andrew McConey, endurance event. Would this happen to be the infamous walk? The walk was part of it, but I mean, I've done a lot of endurance events, whether it's mountain biking and all sorts of stuff. Cyclone thing was an endurance event in itself over those days of long, hard days, just without food and water. So, yeah, lots of different types of endurance events, really. He said that he answered when to stop writing is answered. That's cool. And then question for Paul from Andrew. I suppose I should stick it on the screen. How do you differentiate between bravery and stupidity? Do you have an experience to highlight the difference between the two? Well,
that's a cool question.
That is a cool question. I think you see that again, because I am before anything else, I'm a bit of a nerd, and on top of being a nerd, I'm a bit of a scaredy cat, and so whatever I embark on, which may seem risky or dangerous to the naked eye or to somebody looking from the outside, I have calculated my risk extensively before I do something. And I fight fear with competence and knowledge. So whatever I do, I've probably sat researching, studying, gaining as much knowledge as I possibly can, which is in my reach before I embark on something quite hectic. I'm not just going to throw myself into a situation, which is why like I'm not keen on bungee jumping. I don't like roller coasters. I don't bother with any of that because those to me are like there's no skill involved. It's theme park rides. So I don't like the fact that I can't calculate it, I can't control it, it's not dependent on my skill level. It's really just dependent on a piece of equipment that if it fails, it fails. If it doesn't, you're good. And they won't fail, which is fine. But it just doesn't appeal to me in any way. So I'm not the guy to go on roller coasters or do bungee jumping. I like paragliding. I like kayaking. I like things where calculated risk is a calculated risk, some level of skill that's required and training, and something that you bite off the amounts that you can chew based on your capability or your physical capability or your knowledge and the rest of it. So bravery is that calculated risk, not putting others in danger as a result, facing your fear by utilizing knowledge to move forward. And stupidity is people who throw themselves into situations without the right information, without the right knowledge, without the right skill sets, putting others in danger in the process and themselves in danger. So for me, that's stupidity. If you watch programs like Jackass, those guys did stupid shit. And then you watch something like it's a French thing called Le Petit Bus Rouge or something, which is the little red bus, and it's a bunch of circus folk who are slackliners, base jumpers, and climbers, and they travel around in this little red bus in clown outfits and stuff, jumping off cliffs, doing base jumping and stuff. And you look at them, and that's not stupidity, that's bravery, and they're very good at what they do. They know what they're doing. They take the piss out of it by wearing clown outfits and all the rest of it. I really recommend watching that. And it's a different thing. So some guys are putting themselves in danger and trying to get hurt, like the Jackass guys, and some people are actually skilled athletes. I had this similar conversation. I was interviewed by a journalist on Sky News in 2016, where they were asking, like, has the invention of the GoPro contributed to base jumping deaths? I was saying, look, I'm not a base jumper, but I can tell you that most adventure sports athletes really do take calculated risk. They don't show for the camera. They just record what they can do. It's more like these weekend warrior home people that suddenly think because they've seen something on TV they can do it themselves. They don't see the training and stuff that goes into it. So I don't think the GoPro really contributes to the athletes' deaths like the base jumpers, but it probably has contributed to a few injuries for muppets at home that think that they can do what they shouldn't be doing. We are coming up to 1 hour now, so I just want to take any more questions from anybody who's watching. Otherwise, we're going to wrap it up. I don't want to keep everybody forever. Again, like I said over and over, if you've enjoyed this, please tag people to watch, share it with your friends. Let me know if you want to hear any specific topics discussed. I'm still very keen to get a conservationist of some sort. I'm very keen to talk to a hunter guide. What I really want out of this platform is to discuss various topics, broad topics, and explore them from all different angles. Like I really wanted, I don't want to sit here with like I'm pro and I'm against. I don't want to have that kind of discussion. I'd rather look at it, even put my own belief systems aside and play devil's advocate, play around with it, because the point of the whole thing is to educate and grow myself, and hopefully if it spills over into whoever's watching, that would be great too. So I will come into the conversation with a really open mind. I might ask hard questions about certain topics. I might ask easy questions. It'll all be with the idea of wanting to expose different perspectives rather than come to a right answer. I'm not interested in right answers. I'm interested in many perspectives, because at the end of the day, my belief system is that it's important to have strong opinions that are loosely held. So I have strong opinions on certain things, but they're all loosely held. And if I'm educated away from my opinions, I'll take on the new education rather than be solid in my opinion. So yeah, so that's that. And if there are no more questions, there's a lot of people have just joined. Dylan Freeman, he is a legend. You should see his pictures. They are beautiful. He does falconry in Dubai, I think. And yeah, Dylan, actually, you will be a sweet guest. Please, can we do something? We can talk about falconry in Dubai. That would be amazing. Write that shit down. Anita Sales, she's a beautiful dancer that I've known for years. Gareth Blake is there. Jessica Anthony. David Amiot's supposed to be a hunter guide that's supposed to be on the show. We're just waiting for him to get a stable internet connection. So I'm keen for him. Jason Doraz, haven't seen you in a long time, bro. Happy days. Stacey Atwell, Natasha Ann, I haven't seen you for years. And Nika, hi. So yeah, quick, last chance to put in some comments, last chance to ask some questions. Do you have anything else you want to say or ask or talk about, Kristi-Lee?
No, I think we kind of gone over quite a bit, but I really agree with your philosophy on strong opinions held loosely, so that you can be open to education and be educated away from that, if you are, and also your philosophy of being known for what you are for and not for what you're against. I think that's really awesome, and we've spoken about this kind of thing before. So yeah, I love that, and yeah, this has been fun. I don't see any more questions coming up, but I love the questions that got asked sort of throughout. Those were really cool. Thanks, Andrew. You asked most of them.
Andrew's showing you some love as well. He says, Kristi-Lee, you're amazing. Thank you for allowing us to pick your brain tonight. Good luck on future projects and endeavors.
Oh, thanks for joining, man.
And we chatted earlier, and there's a potential that we will be collaborating a little bit more, Kristi-Lee and I. So this won't be the last time you've seen her on my feed. And I might, at some stage, invade the Inscrutable Shrew. And yeah, so. Oh, Andrew's got one more question. Blogs versus vlogs. Which one is your go-to? Wow.
Blogs versus vlogs. What do you think, Paul? What's it for you?
It depends on what you're trying to achieve and who you're trying to reach at the end of the day. It's a difficult one. Like, this is something else that I find quite interesting, is because most of my Chronicles of Suntwe are on my website, and I share the link to my website. And what I've noticed is that in Zimbabwe, by doing that, I minimize my shares and I minimize my readership, because people buy Facebook bundles specifically. So if they have to click to a link outside of Facebook, they don't read it because they don't have the data bundle. So whereas like a live broadcast like this through Facebook is still part of the data bundle that you buy as a Facebook user. And that's a specific Zimbabwean thing, whereas everybody outside of Zimbabwe has no problem clicking a link outside of Facebook. So if I want to get better readers in Zimbabwe, I have to actually take my blog and put it in a Facebook post instead of having an external link to go to. So it just depends, who do you want to watch. You need to know who your target is, what you're trying to achieve, what the message is again. Will it be better through visual medium? Would it be better through written medium? I've often thought about maybe, because I have all these side stories and stuff, I was thinking maybe the Chronicles of Suntwe should literally be me sitting here telling the story and bringing in the video footage on the sides in a video that can go onto YouTube and stuff. But then I would need somebody in the room with me who I can actually tell the story to, so I can feed off someone. Because I've tried to record it just telling the story, and without the audience to feed off of, and the reaction and the question and the just hold on, I've got to get through this. It ends up being like, once upon a time I went to this thing, and it gets very dreary and boring. So it depends on how you operate, really. But I think. Yeah, I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I totally agree that it depends on who you're trying to reach. I have exactly the same thing with the Inscrutable Shrew, when people were kind of saying, oh, you should start a blog and whatever. Whenever you think of a written blog, you kind of think WordPress and stuff like that. But the reality for me was that Facebook is the most accessible thing for Zimbabweans. I myself hate clicking out onto links to go to different websites. I like that Facebook is very social in terms of blog posts, and because my stories are very based in our community and sharing our sort of experiences, I wanted people to be able to easily tag people and do stuff like that, and Facebook is just great for that. And so I had chosen to do written blogs instead of vlogging, because I am a writer. I love writing, and I like using the English language to put views across, because it can just be so great. I'm not being very eloquent right now, but you know me. So for me, it works to go onto Facebook, put on my written post, and just post it. But if you you can do vlogging on Facebook really easily as well. It's not that you have to go to a different platform, but I guess you have to decide how do you best communicate. Some people are the most fantastic orators in that they can tell spoken stories magically. And so if you're a person like that who doesn't want to sit down and slog away at writing, like you heard what Paul and I were saying before about how we get writer's block and we're perfectionists and whatever, if you want to skip all that out and you're really good at storytelling verbally, then go for a vlog. If you're the type of person with charisma who can catch an audience and they want to listen to you and they want to hear the way that you tell a story, then you can get really far doing vlogs and telling your stories like that. And Facebook is also good for that if you don't want to do it on a website, especially if it's going to be Zimbabwean based, if your viewers are Zimbabwean based, mainly. And then, and if you don't feel like, I don't have any problem speaking in front of the camera, but I think I'm more eloquent in the written word than I am in speaking. And so for me, the written blogging was the way to go. So it just depends who you're trying to reach and how you want to go about that, what suits you and your communication style.
I agree. So we'll take one more question, and then we're going to wrap, because it's going over an hour now. So here it is. Speaking of vlogs, can one be a successful YouTuber in Zim? So first thing I want to say to this question is, what's your definition of success? Is it financial success? Is it viewership? Is it influence? What success are you actually trying to achieve? Secondly, I don't think geography should be a problem when it comes to success. The only issue that I see when it comes to monetization in Zim is the fact that you probably need an external bank account, ability to utilize credit card transactions, PayPal, all the stuff that is limited in Zimbabwe. Well, was limited when I was still there, because I explored a lot of avenues that I could monetize, or even simple stuff like I do T-shirt sales. If anyone wants a T-shirt, I sell T-shirts on my Facebook page, both this one and the Raw Adrenaline page, and it's just pocket change really to try and keep the content going. So if you want to support and buy a T-shirt, go for it. No pressure. I'm not forcing it on anybody. Or if you've got a T-shirt idea that you think would be cool and I can put on there, tell me. But yeah, so you got to define what your success is and all the rest of it. There's no reason why you can't create decent content in Zimbabwe and start going. I mean, there's no blocks except the actual physical banking blocks, I guess. There's one more begging for a question. Wait, one more question. David Martins, what do you want to know, buddy? Tell us quickly because we're about to wrap. And do you have anything to add to that vlog YouTube thing?
Sorry, say that again.
Do you have anything to add to what I just said about the vlog, the YouTube, successful YouTube thing?
Yeah, I think it's possible to be a successful YouTuber in Zim. Basically, you've got to have good content and you've got to have an audience, and your audience doesn't necessarily have to be in Zim. But I would imagine that being a Zimbabwean, your content is always going to be coming from that kind of experience. And so I agree with Paul that your main sort of hurdle here is where your funds are going to go, because it needs to be external. Sorry, my dogs are barking in the background. But if you can overcome that and figure out how to have a sort of offshore account or something of that nature, then it's really just about making good content and knowing who your audience is and making sure it caters to them, and putting it out there. I think that we're so global now that there's no reason people in Zim can't become successful YouTubers.
Okay, so the last question, and then we're filling it, from David Martin. If we follow you, I have a personal question. Have you found a wedding venue yet? We have followed your wedding planning online, so we need to know that.
So yes, we found a wedding venue, and we were supposed to get married on the 2nd of May, and because of COVID-19, it has been postponed. So boo. But yeah, we found a wedding venue, and I obviously lots of people see me asking to borrow stuff online and whatever. I'm always asking to borrow stuff from people for shoots and movie, and then I thought, why not for the wedding? You know, people have got stuff lying around. So yeah, we found a venue, but we haven't been able to get married yet. So that's still, pictures will be forthcoming once the wedding has taken place one day in the future.
Cool. Right, guys. So that is a wrap. Now we're done. Massive thank you to Kristi-Lee for joining me, and massive thank you to everybody who's watched and got involved and asked questions and engaged with the situation. Without you guys watching, without the questions, it's pointless. Well, somewhat pointless. It's still nice to have a conversation and have my own questions answered as well. But yeah, ultimately we do it for you, and hopefully it's provided you some entertainment. As always, I hope we've left you with more and not less, and that you've gained value from the situation. If you have gained value, please share it with your friends. Please encourage people. Every Wednesday, 7 p.m. CAT. If I don't have a guest, then I just do an Ask Me Anything session. I've only had to do one of those so far. And yeah, take care, stay well, stay safe. And again, Kristi-Lee, thank you so much for taking the time out to join me and being so awesome. Cheers, everybody.
Thanks so much, Paul. Really appreciate it. It's been so fun.